All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, we want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rekakwadash. Giving double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone. Shalom to the hopefully led. Shalom to all the brothers out here laboring in this truth with sincerity. Shalom to the few sisters that watch. It's coming back with another lesson because things are getting, tight as it pertains to travel. Prices on goods are going to go up, all because, this devil is playing a seesaw mind game with the Strait of Hormuz situation. Last week, the strait was all the way open. Anybody could pass, per Donald Trump. Now, just a couple of days later, it's back closed again. So we know somebody's lying. More than likely, it's this devil, to keep his base or keep his country, Babylon the Great, a.k.a. America, thinking that they had an upper hand, the citizens, man. It's a lot of people out here that are waking up to Donald Trump and what he's saying, the lies. But, he still has a base, man. So we just going to go into it, because fuel prices, jet fuel prices are skyrocketing, as well as gasoline prices, which is going to cause goods to go up. More and more people are going to suffer, man. We know this devil is really trying to collapse the dollar, collapse the global economy to usher in the digital currency, more digital monitoring of the people and all this, man. So we just going to go into it, get a couple scriptures and go into a couple article or two and, see what these news broadcasters has to say and, just filter through it, man. So let's see what they're talking about.
Okay, as we continue to watch the Strait of Hormuz to see if it's going to reopen, we're already seeing oil prices hit airlines and your wallet. Get this, major airlines just announced that they are raising fares and baggage fees to offset surging jet fuel costs. It's happening. And listen to this, Air Canada just suspended flights to New York and other locations. So let's bring in now President and CEO of Airlines for...
So this is going to affect a lot of things, man. Raising luggage prices, bag prices. That's a major thing, man. You got some people that have, a minimum of 2 bags, and pertaining to that, according to that, that's another $100, man. So travel is getting very expensive. It's going to affect, passport bros, these women that like to travel, and just travel in general, man. People are going to be second guessing, man. Should I take this vacation or should I save for a rainy day, which is going to, affect other economies around the world, man. A lot of these places depend upon tourism to survive. It's just a snowball effect right now. Even within the United States, travel is going to slow down, as we're going to see in this article. They're canceling flights, trying to preserve costs, man. Flights that don't make them any money, they're canceling. They're canceling the routes. They're just sticking with the profitable flights right now. So let's continue on. Matter of fact, Salakia, I ain't even got a scripture. I'm tripping. So let's go to the book of 2nd Esdras, definitely verse 17, starting at verse 17. It says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. And we see this taking place right now. It's a lot of people that want to travel and looking at the cost and saying, no, I got to second guess this, man. Hey, you look at tickets or you look at prices of places to go. And, man, you got to plan well over a year in advance to be able to go on a simple trip, man. This is where we are. As to where people used to just, hey, I'm going to the airport next week and hop a flight and go here. Them days are over. Maybe some people can still do that. But for the most part, man, things are changing. Gas is up, close to $4 right now. And it's not going any lower than probably $3.50. And that's forever, man. Things are changing. This devil is putting a squeeze on, pressure from above, pressure from below. And it's going to eventually cause a collapse. And that's what we're seeing, man. That is what we're seeing. That's the stages of what's taking place, man. Which is going to eventually overflow into a great ball of mess, man. That's where we are. So let's go to verse 18. It says, "For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled." Donald Trump being all prideful, don't want to comply, thinking, he's showing his muscle, but what he's doing is causing a bigger problem, worldwide, man. And ultimately, the cities are going to be troubled anyway. We know Jacob's trouble is headed our way, man. It's headed our way. It says, "The houses shall be destroyed and men shall be afraid." Eventually it's going to come to that. People are going to be desperate, not knowing what to do, running out of means of getting food, not being able to not even having enough gas to get to work, man. Not even having enough gas to get to your job, which is going to cause great stress. So let's see what these devils talking about.
For America, Chris Sununu, he's here now to help us all understand what's happening. Chris, you talk to these airlines every single day. Gosh, what a quick couple of hours we've had here. We had the Strait open and now it's closed again. I can't imagine what they're thinking right now. Give us some insight.
Well, so again, when you see the price of oil might go up 20-30%, but it's the price of jet fuel that has more than doubled around the world. And what the Strait of Hormuz is doing, it's really cramping that supply in Europe. Luckily, we're here in the United States of America. We have a lot of supply, which is good, so we don't have those constraints yet. We're watching. We're not as worried as Europe, but we are watching. We could have a very heavy summer. But the prices are really dictated often worldwide because our carriers will fly to Europe and they fuel up there as well and fly back. And so what they're really trying to do is not pass the cost on to the price. If you notice, the actual price of your ticket isn't really moving a whole lot, maybe 5 or 6%. But they're trying to find alternative ways to do it. And that's what you just saw there. Baggage fees, right? Which is your choice, whether you want to bring a bag or not. So they're letting people kind of still have that economical option. They might be reducing some of the more.
And just looking at this devil, man, you can just see he's being prideful. Oh, we're in the U.S. We don't have to worry about that right now. We have plenty of fuel. That's pride, man. No humbleness in sight. Even in a interview, man. Like it's not affecting people. The U.S. may have a lot of fuel, but still the prices are going up. He's trying to make light of it. And that's the tactic of these devils, man. Try to make you feel comfortable, but at the same time, all kind of chaos and destruction is going on behind your back. And that's why the scriptures say, never trust thine enemy, man. Or this devil, as soon as they're born speaking lies. So you cannot trust Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, even when it comes to simple things, man. This devil is looking for an advantage at all turns. So let's see.
Frequented routes that aren't making quite as much money, so those might have to get pulled back a little bit. So they're trying to get really creative so that the fare price doesn't get pushed. But fuel is about 25-30% of the cost of running an airplane. So they're going to lose, I think the latest study about 2 days ago came out, they're going to lose about $25 billion at least this year. Wow. Just in because of the fuel crisis.
Wow. That is a major blow. So when you have You're losing 25 billion in this industry. Flights are not gonna be safe anymore for the simple fact, how you gonna do maintenance on your planes at a cost deficit like that, man? 25 billion in the hole. Flights about to become a whole lot more dangerous, man, behind this situation. So let's see what the devil's talking about.
That they're really dealing with. So they're trying to manage through it as best they can. It's a very low margin business. I mean, these guys, I think the average profit margin in this business is 4%. Okay, so,
No way.
So they have a very little bit to work with. Yeah, they don't make a whole lot of money in any of this. So when you see something like a 30% of your cost doubling and tripling in price and trying not to pass that on to the customer as best you can, it's hard. It's a dance, but they're doing pretty well. Would love to see the Strait open. Would love to see some normalcy, and we're all hoping for a really strong summer.
Okay, I want to pull up the Strait map, actually, if we can. This is the maritime map. It shows live pictures of the boats really not going anywhere, stuck right now, backlogged. The president says, Chris, that we're going to get some more information tonight, so we'll see. If these oil tankers, let's say, start moving again tonight.
So, oil tankers are not moving. But yet and still, Donald Trump said a couple days ago that the Strait of Hormuz was open. They got to put these ads in here.
Never sue the person who hit you after a car accident. I just got $100,000 for an accident I was in.
But we begin with breaking news on the war with Iran. President Trump and Iran say the Strait of Hormuz is completely open now that Israel and Lebanon have agreed to a ceasefire. Now, President Trump made the announcement on his Truth Social platform shortly after Iran's foreign minister confirmed the opening. But in his statement, the president called the critical fuel passageway the Strait of Iran. Now, this is a live look at marinetraffic.com. It shows vessels moving through the strait right now, and we'll keep an eye on it to see if that activity continues to increase. Let's bring in CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand. She's live at the White House for us today. Good to see you, Natalie. So what happens next, and what does all of this mean for the U.S. naval blockade?
Well, and you can maybe see hundreds of them right there, backlog. How quickly
now,
do you
2 days
think
later,
will
it's backlog? So is it open or not? Man, but that's the psychological warfare that's being played on the people, but hey man, that's why we had the scriptures. That's why we had the scriptures. We know the playbook. We know what's coming. We're not alarmed by none of this, man. We're just sitting back, being spiritual commentators, so to speak, and bringing it to the people. So the elect of Israel. Let's see. Let's get another scripture, man. Let's see. Let's see it on that. Let's see. Let's go. Proverbs chapter 16. And man, that's a beautiful title. Contrast the upright and the wicked. It's showing you the separation between the elect, the righteous, and the wicked. So let's see. Let's go to verse 17. Hold on now. Let's go to verse 18. It says, pride goeth before destruction, and an haughty spirit before a fall. And this devil is so prideful, speaking of Nero, Donald Trump. Hey, one day the strait is open. We have total control. We got a blockade. Ain't nobody getting through unless we say so. The strait is completely open the next day. Come on, man. That's just prideful. It says, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Who is more prideful than Esau, Edom? My friend, let's go into haughtiness, haughty spirit.
Strong's H 1363. Go back. Go back.
Let's see. Height, exaltation. Let's see. Haughtiness. Let's see. Haughtiness is an attitude of arrogant superiority, disdain, and scornful pride, where a person acts as if they are better than others. You know, no sign of humbleness, man. You know, this devil is so this devil is so prideful to the point where, you know, he's so prideful to the point where he's going to collapse his own country, you know, his own well-being of his own people to the point of destruction. You know, hey man, that it don't get no more prideful than that, man. All to have total control of humanity, man. You know, that's pride, man. You know, where you don't even care about your own people. So, you know, that's where we are, man. That's where we are. And it's a beautiful thing to see. Because, you know, we don't have any, we don't have a dog in the fight. You know, we just patiently waiting on our Lord to return. You know, that's all we're doing. But let's get into this article, man. That's enough rambling. Let's get into the facts. This article comes by way of the street. It says another airline canceled flights for disturbing reason. And it says with jet fuel remaining at a record high amid the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, the number of airlines have started to cancel flights to run only the most profitable routes. Delta Airlines and Air Canada each trimmed 6 routes to different U.S. cities from its summer flying schedule, while Dutch flag carrier KLM canceled 160 flights initially scheduled between May and September of 2026. So what that devil was saying on Fox News is a total contradiction to this. He said we were fine in the U.S., but as you see, Delta and Air Canada trimmed 6 routes to different U.S. cities from its summer flying schedule. So that don't sound like we okay to me. And it says Dutch flag carrier KLM, which I never heard of them, but it says cancel 160 flights between May and September of this year, man. And we know summertime is the booming schedule for flights. It says multiple other North American, European, and Asian airlines have all also been significantly reworking their networks. These people are in a panic, man, but they're not telling the masses of people. It says due to rising kerosene costs, these routes are currently no longer financially viable to operate, KLM said in a statement on the cancellations of the route of the Schiphol Airport, whatever. You know. And it goes on. It says the latest carrier to announce widespread route cuts. So this is worldwide. You know, this is worldwide. And the only reason that America and Canada are able to sustain because, you know, they, like the devil said, they got, you know, a lot of fuel. But that can run out, man. That can run out. Let's see. So this is more so Europe and other, you know, foreign airlines. But that's directly affecting America too. You know, a lot of these flights come here, man. You know, And we're in Atlanta, supposedly the busiest airport in the world. So you know they're catching it, man, which is it's gonna be a trickle down. You know, the airport is gonna lose money. Restaurants in the airport is gonna lose money. Your cab services, your parking places are gonna lose money. All this, man, it's just a trickle down effect. Everybody's gonna suffer because of this. It's not just flights, you know. So, you know, we just went through this, man. Just you know, bringing it, you know, to to the light. You know, digging a little deeper than these news broadcasters or whatever. Like I said, man, we're spiritual broadcasters. Bringing the truth, man. Filtering these things through the scriptures. So, with that being said, we want to constantly give our praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rekakwadash. Shalom.